Okay, to anyone who has been following any of my videos, anybody that has taken an interest in my videos, uh, I'm having nothing but trouble with the HOA. Uh, the reason I'm having trouble with the HOA is I'm damaged goods. Okay? Uh, I've been beat up a lot along the way. I'm 75 and a half years old, single, never been married, never had kids, and probably the biggest contributor to that lifestyle is that around 35 years old, after bouncing around for about 11 years doing every kind of job, sales, casino dealer, casino worker, plumber, electrician, you name it, I did it for about 11 years until I had through a veterans deal in upstate New York, they had an apprentice program to get your A&P license, airframe and power plant license from the Federal Aviation Authority. And what got me into that VA program was I had spent 4 years in the Marine Corps from 68 to 72 working on the missile system, radar search and destroy missile system on the state-of-the-art F-4J. There were two F-4s that flew during Vietnam. There was an F-4B that was an older type radar, and then they came out with the J. And they came out with the J for it was about 2 years before I hit a squadron. So they weren't around very long. But that's what got me into this program, and I'm getting back to being damaged goods. When I got hired by this small commuter airline in upstate New York, they hired me at $6 an hour. The VA or the government gave them $3, half my wages, and they kicked in $3. So they were getting me for $3 an hour with a little federal help. And I did pretty good. They weren't in a hurry to get rid of me. The only problem is like for 2 years while I worked for this airline, maybe for one month out of that 2 years that I had weekends off. The rest of the time it was graveyard with Tuesday and Wednesday off. I don't know if you've ever been to upstate New York, but there isn't a lot going on Tuesday and Wednesday night. Okay? So there wasn't much social life for me, and it was hard work. It was graveyard. I learned a ton. I learned a lot, and I had to do 2 years there before the FAA would sign me off to take the tests. There's 2 tests. There's an airframe test you have to take. There's a power plant test you have to take. Then you have to take a practical test with a guy that his job is to watch you work. You work with him for the day, and he asks you questions and challenges you with little problems to see if you have any basic knowledge at all, and he signs you off. The guy that signed me off gave me a lecture. This is your ticket. You more or less don't know anything right now. You got a license to go out and learn how to fix airplanes now. All you have is just basic knowledge. First of all, don't ever sign off for something you didn't see. And never let anybody sign off your work. Always be honest as much as you can. Take it serious, or you'll lose your license. You have an opportunity now to make huge amount of money. And so that's the way it started. But I wasted 2 years of just having my nose to the grind, no social life. Thank God I had a girlfriend that would see me whenever I had time off, or a person, a friend that I could go out and have dinner with or something like that on my off night, crazy night off. But no social life. But I had my license. Now, I just want to tell you, a lot of people here in this HOA think that I'm very over the top. I'm rude. I don't have any tact. I'm in your face. Well, you have to understand, this video I'm about to play for you is a small part of a Human Factors. This fella, so far I've found two, he makes Human Factors videos for airplane mechanics. He's making these videos just for airplane mechanics, okay, to keep them focused. I took a precursor to this course 25 years ago at United Airlines. United Airlines, probably it was around 1997, around there, 1998, when I was working for United Airlines at the Oakland hangar in Oakland, California. I was working electronics, what they call R&E, radio and electric. We were doing everything. We stripped airplanes down to their basic skeletons and we put them back together. We did all kinds of modifications. Myself personally, one of my skills was using the old air data machine that you had to sit there and milk the knobs to get it up to like 35,000 feet altitude. You had the pitot tubes all hooked up to static ports. I was one of the few people that could figure that out and do it, and they left me alone looking for leaks. Yeah, you want to have fun? Start looking for static and pitot leaks in a huge 747. You know you got a leak somewhere, and you got about 2 miles of aluminum tubing with all kinds of intersections to find it. So you're constantly pumping the air data system up to do a leak test, and it don't pass for 3 days. Because every time it fails, you go looking for leaks, and you find one. I'm trying to tell you, I'm having trouble with the HOA because I come from that culture, okay? And this whole Human Factors video, he talks about the 12 dirty dozen human factors that are in aircraft maintenance. The 12 dirty dozen of practices or human factors that aren't intentional, they just happen. And we always have to be on guard for them. Now, what I was saying about the first time I took this course, it was a week course. United Airlines was one of the leading airlines at the time 30 years ago, 40 years ago. They trained. I bet every year I spent 2 months of every year for the first 5 or 6 years I was with them going to school. Going to school on airplanes. Going to school on what your specialty. And then once a year we had all these videos we had to watch about driving on the ramp, safety at work, fall trip hazard, fire, knowing all the different types of fires they were and how to fight the fire. All these things, you'd spend a day watching videos once a year. and one of them was false trip hazard. But I get long-winded. I like to parley-vous, but some people, or you follow me, or you think I make any sense. I'm going to go through and let this guy talk, but he's going to talk about the 3 aviation human factors, the human errors. Okay, this is the 3 human errors that happen in aircraft maintenance. Okay, he'll go through it, you'll hear him explain, I'll follow him, but this is just, we haven't even touched. He did about what, up to this point, he did 15 minutes of dialogue getting up to here, but I don't want to bore you. It's bad enough you have to listen to me. But I'm trying to get this across to the HOA. I mean no harm. All I'm trying to do is make the HOA recognize that Tract A is out of compliance. Okay? I've got all the documents. I've got letters. My house is out of compliance. You're not dealing with a kid just off the farm. You're dealing with a guy who fixed airplanes. I know so much engineering. I know what you did up here. Okay? You took Tract A out of service. You redlined it. You redlined it. You segregated it. You co-opted it. You flim-flammed it. You captured the flag. This is white privilege. That's the way I see it. You've put a restriction on my title for my house. When I bought my house, I thought for sure I was going to have a cart path easement onto the golf course 45 minutes from or 45 feet from my house. I didn't get it. But you don't want to hear me anymore. But also, I might stop between each one and try to relate it to the HOA I'm dealing with.
The pair model is very, very useful in identifying the sources of elements that can affect the way that we perform our job. However, when we come into the rubber to the road portion of human factors, we're really looking at human error. Ultimately, the airplane in and of itself is neither good or bad. It doesn't have a mind of its own, even though it seems like it sometimes, and it can't actively work against us. We're just dealing with different sets of problems and different sets of components that have varying degrees of difficulty to them. However, where the people come in is where we can start to see the issues happen. We're working on something that doesn't have a personality, and so the only problems that we can put onto an airplane are the problems that we bring with ourselves. There's 3 areas of human error that we're going to look at: unintentional human error, intentional human error, and active and latent human error. So let's take a look at a couple examples. Unintentional human error, to me, is well stated in this quote from Robert Persig. They sat down to do a job and they performed like chimpanzees. Nothing personal in it. They were good-natured, friendly, easygoing, and uninvolved. They were like spectators. You had the feeling that they had just wandered in there themselves, and somebody had handed them a wrench. There was no identification with the job, no saying, "I am a mechanic." This is an interesting quote. The quote comes from a book that Robert Persig wrote, and the event here he's describing is trying to get his motorcycle repaired that took no less than 3 attempts for professional mechanics to overhaul it, each time creating larger and larger problems for the machine. Now, you'll notice some interesting elements. He points out that there's nothing wrong with these mechanics as people. They're friendly, good-natured, easygoing. They're nice people, the kind of people you may like to talk to. However, he talks about them being uninvolved. Now, this is just one element of an unintentional error, but ultimately, when we have an unintentional example of human error, it's something that was not meant to be done, hence unintentional. It's something that came either as a lack of knowledge, maybe a lack of experience, in this case, a lack of personal accountability or personal investment with the job that they were doing. If you don't care about what you're doing and you don't take any pride in your work, you're more likely to make unintentional errors because you lose some of your attention to detail. That's the kind of thing we're looking with unintentional human error. But let's take a look at intentional. A famous quote, or at least a famous saying in aviation, I'm not sure who to attribute that one to, is That repair should get you all the way to the scene of the crash. This, to me, explains an intentional piece of human error pretty deliberately. Intentional is exactly that, deliberate, or in this case, we would consider it a violation of FAA regulations. We have rules. An intentional component of human error indicates that the person making that error has done so with intent. They know what the rules are, and they decided to try to circumvent the rules, presumably because they felt they knew better. This is not trying to intend that someone would sabotage an aircraft or that they have intentionally tried to create a situation where the airplane would crash. Instead, what an intentional element of human error refers to is when someone thinks they know better, when someone thinks that they don't need the manual, when someone thinks that they don't need to go through the correct procedures, when someone thinks that they don't need the checklist. These are all considered intentional components of human errors because it has been done with intent.
Discover the easy way to organize and safeguard all your photos and videos. It's this simple.
The
Okay,
last
I have
area
to
comes from
apologize for
the
that.
Challenger disaster. This was taken from a article that was written in Space Safety a number of years ago, but it's an interesting situation. With the pressure from NASA, Thiel management gave their approval to the launch, and Challenger was on its way to disaster. This failure in communication, combined with a management structure that allowed NASA to bypass safety requirements, was the organizational cause of the Challenger disaster. Now, this, again, to me, is a very, very good example of what we look at with an active and latent element of human error. The incident that took place, the actual accident or action, in this case, was the failure in communication in which the concerns about components on the Challenger spacecraft were not properly addressed and the bypass was made. That was the active human error. However, latent is talking about a situation that existed that contributed to that active error taking place. In this case, we see the second half of this statement, a management structure that allowed NASA to bypass safety requirements. It was an organizational cause. In this case, part of NASA's organizational structure or their organizational culture created a situation in which a safety issue was allowed to be bypassed in a maybe not necessarily split-second decision, but a last-minute decision. This is an organizational error that really could have caused a different accident and has caused other accidents at different times leading up to this particular incident. However, it wasn't until the investigation from the Challenger disaster that we started to identify this issue within NASA's structure that allowed this kind of active error to take place. So whenever we look at an element of human error that comes from an environment within an organization, comes from a culture around different types of maintenance. As you talk to different mechanics, you'll talk to mechanics who work on small airplanes, mechanics who work on large cargo airplanes, commercial airplanes, military mechanics. Each set of mechanics is going to have a slightly different culture, and with those cultures can potentially come risks that enable people to make active human error mistakes. It allows them to make decisions or do things that can lead to accidents or incidents because of the elements that were already there as a part of that culture. That's the difference between the three primary sections of human error. Hope you've enjoyed this introduction to human factors as we take a look further down the road.
Okay. As I'm going to relate this to the HOA management, everything that he just mentioned, these three errors were committed over here at Track Day in Parcel 12, 20 years ago, 22 years ago, whenever. But the first one, where nobody was involved, it isn't our property, we're just doing our job. Whatever they tell us to do for a paycheck, we're going to do it. If they tell us to fill it in, we're going to fill it in. We're not going to say anything. We saw them make a fake one, and then we were part of filling in the fake one. And but it isn't our property, so we'll let it go. And They went through with it just doing because that was their job. The boss said fill it in, I filled it in. Okay. Now we get to the number 2 error. That was the number 1 error. The number 1 error was a collective of people who don't care. They have nothing invested, even though they may question why did we have this original one, and this guy came out and he walked the end of it, he looked at it, he talked to the boss. The boss handed him a piece of paper, he signed it, and when he left, the boss came over and said, fill it in. Pull the plants out and fill it in. Well, they're paying us, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut. The 3 monkeys, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. We'll fill it in. That was the number 1 error. And it's a human factors error. Nobody meant to do that. They weren't meaning to be doing a human to intentionally, but it was that culture. Nobody cares. We're just going through the motions. We're doing this for a paycheck. We're gonna keep our mouths shut. Now the second human error was the intentional. And again, that's what happened over here at parcel 12. Tract A, they intentionally filled it in. They intentionally extended the pipe 89 feet down to the lake. They intentionally doubled the flow rate outside of what municipal civil engineers would deem the proper flow rate. They did it on purpose. And what they did is they restricted everybody's right to use Tract A as an access easement for pedestrians, maintenance vehicles, golf carts, and emergency rescue, EMTs, fire and rescue. That's what Tract A was there for. And we had that human error over here at Sundance. So they're batting 1,000 as far as the human errors over here at Tract A 21, 22 years ago. Now we get to the last one, aviation human factors, because of organization. Because of the organizational culture over here, the board, the manager, the head of the board, their lawyer that they employ, they don't want to open this up. And it's an organizational thing where they've all agreed that that parcel over there doesn't need emergency ingress and egress. It doesn't need to have the drain work properly. And that Grand Canyon at the end of the tract that if they stepped in it at night, they'd probably kill themselves, break their neck. Organizationally, we're going to all agree that that's not really anything to worry about. Okay? You didn't work in aircraft maintenance like I did. I come down here and I look and I have all the documents, I have all the paperwork that you did it all wrong, and you still refuse to look at what's going on over here. This is Sundance Active Adult Community, Buckeye, Arizona, Parcel 12, Tract A. It's out of compliance. It doesn't match the map. Now, I don't know if you've ever been on an airplane where you got in your seat, and it happened a lot at America West and US Air when I was working at Sky Harbor. It happens a lot. They're all flying the same exact airplane. All right? If you've just got on an Airbus 319 or 320, and they find out that the emergency door in the back, something's wrong with it, that plane, it ain't going nowhere. If they say we can't fix it in 2 hours, it has to spend the night here for us to fix. Because all you need is one emergency door in a cabin not to work, and that grounds the plane. So if you've ever been on a plane where they've done that, and they go, grab all your stuff and go to gate so-and-so, and there'll be a plane at gate so-and-so, and it'll be the same plane as this, and all your bags are going to be taken over there. And so you get off the plane, you go over to the other plane. And the flight crew, the stewardesses, flight attendants, the pilot, the co-pilot, go over there. It's the same plane. Nothing different. That's because everything that's done on an airplane has to be signed off. Everything has to be a twin. It all has to match. Well, what they did over here in Parcel 12, Tract A, is they made an exception. What it's called, this neighborhood got dispensation. They treated this access easement, this drainage tract, different than other ones on the golf course. They made it an anomaly, what we call in the aircraft business an anomaly. Okay? That's why they're able to switch planes, cross over. It'd be like fleet cars. You got a fleet of rental cars. All right? They're all the same model. So they say, well, we can't give you this model. We're going to give you that model. You all right with it? You get in it and you go, yeah, I know how to drive this. All right? I have the same car. I picked the car that I drive at home for the rental. They said, well, here it is. Here's your rental. It's the same year as your car. Yours is new. All right? That's why I picked it. That's the one I want because I'm familiar with it. That's what they do with airplanes. But over here in Tract A, Parcel 12, this organization here will not agree or get on the same page. They're afraid. They won't lift the rug up. They're being willfully ignorant to the danger of falling into that hole and the restriction. You redline the neighborhood. Okay? White privilege came in here 20 years ago and said, we're not gonna share this with anybody. And we're snowbirds. I've been paying tribute to snowbirds over here for 19 years. I started out with 3 lots for the first 9 years, and then 2 lots for about 6 more years, and now I'm doing the last lot. And I'm kicked out of the HOA. Why am I kicked out of the HOA? I'm trying to move the needle with the organization inside the HOA. Please come over, take a look at Tract A in Parcel 12. All right? You messed it all up. You did 3. I had to live by this. Like I said, when they had that meeting, I went through this training 25 years ago. They put me in it for a week of 8-hour days. They had to do the whole airline. 90,000 people went through that human factors training. And they not only had mechanics, well, they had the maintenance people, but if you were a secretary for maintenance, you checked paperwork, or if you were a planner for maintenance, or you were a mechanic, or a supervisor, or a lead, the class was done in a maintenance facility for United Airlines. They put us in there in a big group discussion for a week. And lots of times, the young lady that was running the course, the training, lost control. She lost control of the room. But it was healthy. It was healthy. It was heated debate. When they started shoving down your throat, we do it this way, we do it that way. There was people in the room that went, bullshit. We're doing it the quick and easy. We got people here that cheat. We got people here. I've been fighting with this guy for 6 months since I've been here. He wants to sign off everything. He don't like it because I refuse to sign off anything until I make sure it's right. Okay? And that kind of things came out. It got really heated. But nobody got fired. I can't do that here at the HOA. I go in the HOA and I go, do you realize you have a Grand Canyon at the... Do you realize that we need an emergency act? Do you realize that you had a shingle out there advertising that I was going to have a cart path up to parcel 12? Come on. Man up. Somebody man up and say, yeah, we did all 3 errors. We didn't care. We kept our mouth shut. We did exactly what they wanted us to do. We weren't personally involved at all. We were like mutes walking around. And then we had the second one. We did it intentionally. We redlined Tract A and took it out of service and turned it into a 1,000-year entitlement. An entitlement. Okay? And I got thrown in jail over it. That's another thing. I'm very bitter with the HOA. You haven't treated me honest. And I haven't even started talking about what you did to my house. That was 3 things exactly the same. Not only did you fill in Tract A, but you lowered my finished floor elevation. You tampered with my sewer pipes. You put a restriction on the house. I can't sell the house. Not one realtor in Buckeye will let me list this house if I put on it that the finished floor elevation was dropped 2.5 inches, resulting in degrading the pitch and the flow rate of the sewage going to the street. Okay? Nobody wants to hear that. And nobody will man up in Buckeye from the mayor down. Nobody in City Hall. Nobody will come forward. Craig Hustis, Woody Skelton, anybody, Charlie Waters, all you, Jackie Meck. Man up. Man up. Somebody come up and say, yeah, we did it. We didn't know. We didn't think it was that big a deal. Well, it is. I had to live by rules. And in this video here, this 12 points, I hope to make a lot more up from it, but the guy says airplane mechanics can lose their license and their career in a heartbeat. All they have to do is make one of these errors, and especially the intentional. If they do something intentional and the FAA finds out that you went against the rules, you went against the rules that said do it this way, and you thought you knew better. That's exactly what happened over here at Tract A. They extended the pipe. They filled in the easement. We know better. And then on top of that, you made it personal. You lowered my house, and then you put a berm between me and the golf course. I had a surveyor tell me you're storing water under your house. They made you it. You're the slave. You're the drainage slave above the golf course. Thank you very much for listening. Let me see if I can get out of this now and see how bad I messed this up. But this is therapy for me. I don't have any friends. If you ever look at Sigma male, I am the perfect Sigma male. I've been a Sigma male all through my career. I've always had to work graveyard with shifts that change, days off that change. I didn't want to be married and working graveyard. All right? And working during the week, that's been mostly my whole career. The only outlet that I had was golf. I loved it. I don't love it anymore. Golf screwed me, or the people around golf, the people that represent golf. The Masters, this was the first year that I've never watched the Masters. It was like going to church to watch the Masters for 4 days or the U.S. Open for 4 days when I was really in love with golf. I could care less. I didn't even turn on the Masters this year. They're in Harbour Town this week. I love to watch that course because you have to work the ball. It takes a real player to know how to play that course. I didn't even turn on the TV. I don't care about golf anymore. All right? It screwed me. I got gang raped in Buckeye, Arizona by the police department, the mayor's office, civil engineering, the HOA. Thank you for listening. A little advertisement for Buckeye, Arizona.